streaming. Hello, YouTube, and hello, Twitch, and hello, Facebook. Welcome
Twitch,
to the Power,
Facebook,
Purpose,
and YouTube.
Passion podcast. So I'm going to press record on this episode. It's called No Gain Without the Pain. This is probably, it's got to be like episode 50 or something by now. Very exciting. Let's do it. Starting in 3, 2, 1.
Leaders and healers, gamers and claimers, ladies and gentlemen from around the universe, from around the globe, from around the community, welcome to the Power, Purpose, and Passion podcast. I am your host, Anthony Cheam, live to you on many different platforms. This is a podcast where we help you claim your power, clarify your purpose, cultivate your deepest, widest, and highest passions possible so you can ultimately show up as the best, better, more sharpened, wiser version of yourself, most loving version of yourself, so you can ultimately inspire others to do the same. I am your host, Anthony Cheam, speaker, life coach, trainer, author, friend to you, podcast facilitator, partnership with Cameron and many other people on this show, and all the people facilitating this and making this process work and move forward and impacting people's lives on the deep, wide, high levels and scales. Thank you so much for joining us. This is a Q&A session. Cam and I actually had a pretty big talk prior to this, and we're going to talk about no gain without the pain. And this goes for virtually everything in your life, from building muscles. And not just building muscles, but building careers, building foundations, building businesses, deepening your spiritual growth, enhancing the passion and intimacy that you experience within your relationship, bettering your identity, or I would say bettering your identity, but expanding your identity into a strong, powerful, loving, compassionate human being that is able to manifest virtually anything in their life and remain humble at the same time. So that takes pain, that takes a lot of stress, that takes a lot of going through a lot of your doubts and fears, and being able to face those things and embrace them and holding that there. And we're going to talk about that today. We're going to use a bunch of different metaphors. So thank you for joining us. Cam, what's going on, man?
Not too much. As I say this, would you be able to accept the Instagram?
Oh,
I'd request
yes,
it again.
absolutely.
But no, I'm doing very, very well. Everything Anthony is going to say in this podcast, I can absolutely endorse it, because it's weird. In the last episode, when you said, or one of the last episodes, you said to your kids or something like that, like, life is going to be hard. You know, it's not going to be easy. Like, there's going to be tough times, hard times, suffering, whatever. Doesn't mean you're going to like go through some crazy, like, it's just going to be a lot tougher than you'd expect. And there might be times where you feel overwhelmed or stressed or whatever. Yeah. And all of these times, one of my favorite quotes was about something similar to this, which was, I forget who said it, but they said, if you're irritated by every rub, how do you ever expect to get polished? Mm-hmm. And I was like, oh man, like, for some reason that resonated with me, because I am irritated by every rub. Everybody is. Like, you can't just you'd have to be a spiritually enlightened God to go through this stuff and not be irritated a little. It's human nature. But when you can just see the light at the end of the tunnel, that's what keeps you going. Like, I sometimes reread some of my old journals where I talk about my purpose and what I'm doing here. And when I'm having a tough time, I'll reread it and I'll see that, okay, this is why I'm doing this. And once I heal from this, or whatever it is, once I get back from this, I'm going to go full force in my purpose again. And this is part of my purpose. Maybe I need to learn something, or, and as it is, like, when you get rubbed, you get polished. When you get irritated and you get stressed, you get overwhelmed, you get confined, you get squeezed. These are the moments where you grow the most. I think one of the examples that somebody used was a turtle shell, or some sort of crustacean type of shell, where like they kind of like get too big for the shell and it hurts. But if it wasn't for the shell, then they wouldn't have been able to. Actually, no, I apologize. It's a butterfly. And you said that example, that exact example. If a butterfly couldn't, sort of, what do you call it? Like, hit up his wings against its wing against the chrysalis. Yeah. It wouldn't be able to fly. It needs to like go through that suffering moment to be able to fly. You need to be able to tear your muscles to grow. Like, it's just an obvious thing, but I think what we should touch on is Like I'm gonna ask you a few questions and I'll just let
Sure,
you
sure.
answer them for the next
Yeah.
20 minutes.
Yeah.
Basically, we know that we've already established that pain is gain, like going through some of this stuff, learning, and you don't have to reinvent the wheel, but really you need to know yourself, and everyone's different. I can't tell you a lot of the things. Sometimes it's beyond words. Sometimes it's just a human knowing that we can't actually talk about. So you need to go through it. Either way, we talked about that. How would you go about it? Would you do like, can you talk about shadow work? Can you talk about support groups? I don't know, like different ways of getting the most out of your struggle rather than getting rid of it altogether, right? It's like if you're sick, you wouldn't just shove a bunch of pills. If you had a cold for the rest of your life, but you had a way of getting rid of it, would you just decide to take cough medicine your entire life, or would you try and get rid of this cold? So what we're doing is we're just covering up the problem, and we're not getting well. We're not becoming stronger than we were before. We're just sort of like coasting. And so if you could just answer some of that and just take it away.
No, well, listen, I think it's very, very important that if you're looking to enhance your life, if you're looking to grow, if you're looking to develop who you are as a human being and enhance your identity and empower yourself and enrich your life and the people around you, one of the things you have to come to grips with immediately is knowing that pain is inevitable. It's actually necessary. That as you so put, in order to gain muscle, you got to put that you got to tear the muscle. And on that last final rep, when you are struggling the most, that's where most of the gain is made. That like 90% of the muscles gain when it's the toughest. I was particularly this morning, I was in a meditation, and for some reason, you know, people think meditation is just blissful, high joy all the time. Wrong. It's not. People that tell you that meditation is always going to be this divine experience, it's not. It's actually not meant to be. It's actually meant to open the doors, uncover shadow, uncover the dark places, disowned material, disassociated material, and to go deep into it, not run away from it, to go into it. And so what I did this morning, part of me was like, man, I'm having a lot of tough time concentrating. I'm having a tough time just keeping my attention, feeling the joy of it. But rather than actually run away from it, I actually opened the door and entered into what was bothering me, into the tension, into the hallway of confusion, what we've called this before. And I discovered most people would run and say, this is what meditation's about. I don't want nothing to do with it. No, that's when you're growing the most. That is the best meditation. That's exactly it. When you are struggling in your meditation, or you're struggling at your workouts, or you're not losing weight, or you've been on a program for 30 days and you haven't lost a pound, whatever it might be. When you're struggling the most, that means not only is there a time for change, but you're about to have a breakthrough. You're about to actually learn something big. You're about to actually have a breakthrough. But if you quit or run away, that lesson's not going to be revealed to you. And we've talked about this many times before on different shows in various ways. But the point of the matter is that if you can hold that tension there when life is throwing you a lemon, and to be able to cut that lemon open and turn that lemon into lemonade, the proverbial lemonade, and keep going, persistence, perceive that your situation, that this pain is inevitable. It's actually helping you grow. There's no gain without the pain. That when you are struggling the most, strength is being fortified in you, is being cultivated in you in the form, maybe not of external muscle, but interior muscle, in the form of soul muscle, character muscle, willpower muscle, emotional muscle, mental muscle, spiritual muscle, whatever it might be, is being cultivated and sharpened and shaped inside of you. And oftentimes it's those inner characteristics of what I've just shared with you that are more important, that are going to help you get to the next level or the next upgrade or the next update, or illuminate your life with so much more, with more awareness, with more strength, with more love, with more compassion, with more kindness, whatever it might be that you are so desiring and burning and hungering for and thirsting for in your life. So the key to this, when it comes to fear, when it comes to tension, when it comes to stress and struggle, it's one thing to actually run away from it by using drugs or alcohol or food or going to take a nap or playing video games, distracting yourself. You can distract yourself all you want, but unless, we've said this before, anything suppressed will be expressed in later days in uglier ways. It's about going into it, into your fears, into what's uncomfortable, seeing what's there, and then coming out with a lesson, coming out with a sense of clarity, with a sense of joy, going into your suffering. So the heart of suffering, the heart of fear, the heart of your anxieties, the heart of your worries, not running away from it. The key is to go deep into the eye of the hurricane. Hey, it's a perfect example of this is the hurricanes. It's all crazy and there's wind blowing and there's torrential rain and wind all over the place. But in the eye of the hurricane, there is the center of the hurricane. There's that eye, calmness, clarity, peace. And unless you get through that hurricane, the wind and the storms of life, you'll never hit that center of equanimity and peace. So you got to get through those stormy times. You got to get through that. You got to weather that storm with faith, with a sense of, as we were talking about before the show started there, Cam, a sense of knowingness that something is walking with you, beside you, that if you knew who walked beside you, as the Course in Miracles says, you could never experience fear or doubt again. It's not who walks beside you, it's who's actually walking with you, as you, and that's beating your heart right now, that's digesting your food, that's allowing you to breathe, that's beating your heart, that is allowing the 100 trillion cells to work in absolute perfect harmony. 100 trillion cells. I mean, you can't even fathom that. More neuron connections in your brain than there are stars in our universe. What's making all that happen? And guess what? You are the beneficiary of that. You have access to that power, and being able to use that power with faith, with fortitude, with certitude, and knowing that you have the strength and the emotional, abilities and skills to actually get through virtually anything. I mean, there's been so many stories. I love reading biographies of people who have overcome great odds, who have overcome massive obstacles. And the one that keeps on coming up is this guy. His name is, I wrote him in my fourth book, and this guy was like the Hollywood good looking, let me look up his name again, just so I can actually get it. Sorry guys, give me a second, but I want you guys to read about him because he's such an amazing, amazing human being. Hold on a second here. You know what? I'll just pull him up later. Anyways, the point is this guy was a Hollywood good-looking guy. I think he was at Yale University, football star, had dreams of becoming a Hollywood actor, had everything going for him. Like, this guy was like Tom Cruise times 10 in many ways. And he ended up getting in a motorcycle accident and then losing one of his legs. And then he thought, you know what, I'm going to start doing triathlons, or paraplegic triathlons. And he started doing triathlons, broke the record for the most, I think the fastest Ironman in Hawaii for a paraplegic. And he still holds the record, I think, to this day. And then on one of his triathlons, he was hit by a van on the bike portion of his race, and then became a quadriplegic. And you think about if there's anyone that could be mad at the world right now, like that guy, going through tough times, no arms, no legs, went from, the heights of adulation and inspiration, and be given all these gifts, physical gifts, mental gifts, emotional gifts, and then all of a sudden get slammed with a couple massive struggles and pain. And yet he was able to pull himself out of that, gain a lesson, no pain without the gain, strength and struggle are two sides of the same coin. And guess what? He ended up becoming, doing what he could from his wheelchair, and became a motivational speaker. He was even on Oprah, and guess what? He passed away, I think about 4 or 5, 6 years ago. But he became an inspiration. His famous line was, "Choose life, not death." He chose life despite not being able to use his arms and legs. He had a mind, and his limitations weren't predicated on what he could do physically, but what he could do with his mind. And part of the thing about this, what this particular show is about, is how are you using your mind? What are your perceptions about pain in life and stress and anxieties? Are you running away from it? Do you find your pattern being, soon as stress happens and I reach threshold, that I go and eat, or I go and distract myself? How can you, when it's high level stress, step into your stress and sit with it? As we've talked about before, one of the best ways to grow physically, mentally, emotionally is, number one, suffering. The other one is great love. Two of the greatest change agents in the world, love and suffering. But the other one is solitude, sitting with it, being able to sit with it. As I said this morning, I did not want to finish off my meditation, but I knew that part of me was going, no, sit with it, Anthony, sit with it, stay the course, be impeccable, stay the course, stay the course, stay the course. And I was able to kind of just delve deep into it. And then I was able to kind of enter into the eye of the hurricane and bring out what I needed to bring out, which in my case was a sense of it's okay. There's still many areas that I need to grow spiritually, mentally, that are still some unconscious wounds, unconscious patterns that I'm not dealing with that came up as a result of my meditation. So people that are starting a meditation program, I forewarn you, to be forewarned is to be forearmed. And when you're forewarned about the downsides, I won't even call it downside, but that when you get deep into meditation, a lot of things will come up out of that stuff that it could be unconscious wounds or childhood disassociations and all these things that you ran away from that has basically shaped your identity and in your experience of life that you haven't faced, that you're supposed to learn something from. And perhaps maybe you need some therapeutic work or a life coach or a psychologist or whomever to help you through whatever it is you're going through. And in doing so, you're able to talk. I mean, in Cam's case, he was saying that, I write in a journal. Anytime he goes through struggle and strife and life hands him a lemon or he's not sure what to do, he goes and writes in his journal. I meditate, I exercise, I contemplate, I journal too, I write, I talk with people that I admire, people that are mentoring me to kind of clarify a few things and to help me on my journey. So the pain, the gain, the fear, the anxiety, the joy, the fulfillment, Okay, sorry about that, guys. We're on Instagram still. Are we still live or? Okay, perfect. Sorry, guys. My internet
Yeah, we're
went
still
all
live.
crazy. Okay, perfect. Sorry, guys.
No, that's okay. What I'm gonna do is, sorry YouTube, sorry Facebook, it's gonna stay that way. But when it comes to uploading it on iTunes and Spotify, I'll chop it up. So we're good. So start now. Redo it. Not the whole episode.
Okay.
No, just start where you left off.
Okay, well, listen, Cam, anything to add to this episode? Because I know I touched upon a few various things about holding the tension, going into your tension and holding it there, and not. Here's the key: the final solution. Not trying to change it right away. You're trying to change it because most people will like, I don't want to feel fear, I don't want to feel stress, I want to feel anxiety, I want to run away. I'll eat food to change my state, to get me out of the pain and into some semblance of neutrality or some semblance of positivity or pleasure, whatever. But then the pain returns. So not trying to change it. In my meditation this morning, as I said, the key for me was not trying to change it, sitting with it and being okay with it in those moments. And I came out stronger, more aware, and I think more insightful as a result of it. So any thoughts there, Cam?
I'm
To add
thinking
to that?
like you said, people don't want to fear. They don't want to feel fear. They don't want to feel guilt. They don't want to feel anger or sadness or depression or whatever. Just as much as some people don't want to feel the cold. Some people don't want to be in the summer heat. I'm starting to think like it just is what it is. Like I was skateboarding against the wind, in the middle of like, I don't know what weather it was. It was cold. It was very cold. The wind was piercing my face as I was skateboarding home. Yeah. And I could have easily resisted that feeling, and it would have been I would have been suffering 10 times more when you resist it, right? When you if you were just to sit there and like completely hate your meditation, like you dove into a very uncomfortable, like, I want to move, I need stimulation, I can't just sit here, you powered through it. But if you were just to sit there and like not power through it but not leave, which is what a lot of people do still, they just kind of like wallow or like lick their wounds or whatever you want to call it. And what I'm noticing is it's almost as if like happiness and depression, or happiness and sadness, are two, like, they're just emotions. Like why is one more desirable than the other? Obviously there's a reason why one is more desirable than the other, but you don't have to. What I do is like the things in my life, some things in my life make me so happy, but if I attach myself to that, all of a sudden without its presence I'm upset. So so basically we're so attached to not feeling that. Like we are attached to the idea of that is bad, I don't want it near me, but when it's near you, it's like it's worse than it could have been. Like and so I think like just don't give it any power, don't give it any weight. Like I'm reading Excuses Be Gone by Wayne Dyer, and it's just an obvious thing that I used to know, I guess it used to be a big part of me, which was the idea that everything, like we put a value to everything in life. Nothing has value, nothing has meaning. Basically we put that meaning in front of us, we decide. And like I decided that I want to be the type of person who walks into a room and makes other people happy just by being me. I wanted to be a vibrant, bubbly, happy human being who basically brings joy into other people's lives. And back in the day, I used to think, oh, that's a difficult process, because I have to be a certain way. I have to make sure that I don't do this, and I'm going to do that. And it takes a lot of energy. I don't know where I'm going to get that energy to like, be a happy, energetic, sort of radiating this vibe to people. But that's just a little voice in your head, the inner cynic who just keeps saying those things. And so I would just pay attention to what you're saying to yourself with all of this. Oh, I don't want to feel this, I don't want to feel that, I hate this, I hate that. The resistance to these feelings is what creates suffering. I went through the snow, or not snow, it wasn't even snowing, but I went through the cold wind and I wasn't resisting it, and I actually had a blast. I actually thought it was really cool. I was like very radically aware of how fast I was going on the skateboard, and every kick that I made and all the turns and everything, and the music that was playing in my ears and everything. I could have easily turned that experience into absolute hell and just like hated my life for a good 15 minutes. But it's really all the voice in your head, and this voice isn't you. It disguises itself as you, but I know it's not you because we don't complain. It's not in our, like, I always compare myself to the way I was when I was a kid, because, I mean, depending on how you were raised, I mean, myself, I didn't want life to be different than it was because I wasn't old enough to notice that. I wasn't old enough to have expectations. I was just like, oh wow, this is new, this is amazing. Like I wasn't. Can you imagine somebody like buying the newest video game, playing it, and within 10 seconds he's like, this should be that way and that should be this way. No, you haven't even played long enough to know what you expect from it or what you think should be different. And so that's like we've played long enough that there's a part of us that developed, a part of us that wants things to be different, that doesn't want to feel certain things, that fears so much because it's been there or whatever it is. and just quit giving it power, because I know that's basically what we're doing. We're giving that voice the torch and the power to give these emotions such weight when they don't have weight whatsoever. Nothing has weight.
Yes.
So I guess, long story short, because I'm not the best with words. Long story short, don't resist. Just like let it happen. And it's easier said than done, but with meditation and with certain practices, you get to the point where you don't resist as much, and you could just go through what you go through. Because like you said, it is inevitable. It is inevitable.
Yeah.
So
you know what, Cam? No, you are good with words, man. Thank you for sharing that. And it gives me something to think about too, as well, from a different perspective. And it reminds me of what Buddhism teaches about the idea of attachment and aversion. Let's say, for example, you're having an awesome time and you are experiencing bliss, you're experiencing joy, you're experiencing happiness. Here's what I want you to get. When you're experiencing that happiness, be aware, notice the inclination for you to want to continue that happiness. That happiness to live forever. And that's where attachment happens. That's where craving, in Buddhism, they call it craving. And that's when suffering occurs, because that happiness is impermanent. It will end. Or you're listening to this beautiful song and you're like, oh my gosh, or the sounds of the birds in nature. And you're like, oh my gosh, notice your inclination to want it, to attach that bird to never stop, but it's going to stop. And just noticing and being aware of that attachment frees you from the attachment. Just as Cam said, don't resist it, but be aware of your attachment to how things are supposed to be based on your ego, your inner cynic. But also, here's the other thing. When things aren't going well, let's say, as I heard James Finley talk about, imagine you're meditating, you're in nature, and you're like, man, this is amazing. And all of a sudden, you just hear the sounds of construction, like bang, bang, bang. And you're like, oh man, come on, I'm in nature. And all of a sudden, I'm hearing all this construction and noise. Notice your inclination for aversion, to want to make it different than it actually is, to make it different, to want that pain and anguish to end. And just being aware of that aversion, that arising of aversion to want to make it anything different than it is, to make the pain stop or the anguish stop, that frees you from the aversion itself. And then joy arises without foundation, as they say. So just notice that. Hold it. Don't resist it. Holding and not resisting at the same time. Not wanting to be different than it actually is, and you'll be free from it. Even I remember hearing a huge Wayne Dyer interview a long time ago, how he was talking about, he was meditating in Hawaii, and he was meditating this great meditation. All of a sudden, this guy walked by with this motorized, gas powered, clippers for the grass. And he was like, ring, 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 right? And he was like going crazy. And then he was like, are you kidding me? I'm in the midst of my meditation, and he was trying to make it different than it was. And and anytime he got deeper in his meditation, it was almost like the guy would crank up the machine even louder. And then he decided, I'm trying to change this. I'm going to make this a part of my meditation. So he meditated with the noise, not against it. And after he did that, he learned a great lesson. And you know what he did after? He went up, after his meditation, he went up to the guy and gave the guy some money and said, thank you. Isn't that crazy? He gave the guy some money saying, thank you. And the guy did, what? Like, what are you giving me money for? But he thanked him for that lesson of attachment and aversion. And when you are aware of the subtleties of the ego and the cynic at work, you are free of them, because you've made subject object. And anytime you can make subject object, you bring it into your awareness where you can see it and observe it rather than actually be the subject of what's paining you and causing all the suffering, then you are free from it. You're unidentified with it, and thus you are free of it. I know it sounds pretty philosophical, but just notice these two things: attachment, resistance, and aversion to make things different than they actually are. Things are, and I remember, I'll end here with this spiritual quote. I remember there was this guy, he was having a conversation with a spiritual master, and he was saying to him, what is the key to life? What is this enlightened being said, well, everything is as it should be. And the student said, well, if everything is as it should be, why are we trying to change the world? Why are we trying to cure violence and poverty and get rid of nuclear weapons? He said, that too is how it should be. That too is how it should be. So there's an element of both of acceptance for how things are, but also an element of responsibility for making things better. Accept poverty for what it is, but I also have this thing. I'm going to be one of the instruments to cure poverty. I accept it as it is, part of the perfection of the universe, but also wanting to make sure the poor people are fed and they are clothed and they have clean water, all these things. So it's an element of acceptance and responsibility. And I think there's a Sufi saying that says, no one running after the wild ass will catch the wild ass, but no one that's not running will catch the wild ass either. So there's an element of action and of faith, letting go and working. So this is what the show is all about, knowing that the pain is necessary. Suffering, as I heard, is optional. But until you actually get to that level where you're saying, you know what, pain is inevitable, it's necessary in my life. As a Chinese proverb says, a diamond can't be polished without friction, nor man perfected without trials. We need to literally come to grips with that pain is necessary, pain is inevitable, and it's actually strength builders, life builders, and life enhancer. So thank you for joining us on the show. If you like the show, comment, like, share it, whatever you got to do, ask questions. We can continue with the Q&A process. So to your continued upgrade and evolution, live it up with power, purpose, and passion, ladies and gentlemen, leaders and healers, gamers and claimers. Thank you for joining us today. I'm your host, Anthony Cheam. Cameron on the other side of the end, my power partner. Thanks, guys, to your endeavors, to your dreams and desires. God bless you guys. Thank you.